Good morning. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Yesterday I listed the materials that were needed to build the Mishkan, and I kind of went quickly over these, but let's focus on this pasuk. Among the different materials, gold, silver, and the gems that we talked about, V'oros elim ma'adamim, reddish-colored goat skins, V'oros tachashim, and the skins of an animal called Tachash. So these were made to create the cover. So the oros elim ma'adamim, the reddish-colored goat skins, were sewn together in order to create one layer. And then there was a top layer, and the top layer was oros tachashim, sewn together strips of the skins of this animal called Tachash. And this would be the cover of the building. And just remember something. Unless you were a Kohen, you never entered into the building itself of the Mishkan. So you never saw the menorah, the shulchan, the table. You never saw those items. And even if you were a Kohen, you never saw the Aron and the Kruvim, which we discussed yesterday, because that was behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur saw that. But if you were not a Kohen, you didn't see anything inside that building. You stood in the courtyard. And so the only thing you saw of the building, and certainly the largest single item, the biggest item that would appear, was this or Tachash, this skins of the animal called a Tachash, because that was the visible cover of the entire building. So it certainly made an impact. Just one question. What was it? If you look in English translations of the Torah, you will find many different possibilities of translation of this animal called Tachash, which, by the way, is not mentioned anywhere else. Some translations say that it is the skin of a seal. A little hard to understand. Where were there sea seals in the desert? You'll also see that it was the skin of a unicorn, a narwhal, an ermine, an antelope, all kinds of different animals, because nobody knows. So there are all kinds of strange suggestions. Then, in addition to suggestions about which animal it was, then there are suggestions that it doesn't refer to an animal at all, rather it refers to a process. It means that the skins, whatever they were, of this layer were waterproof. Because remember, this is the top layer. So it would make sense that they were somehow treated or fashioned in some way that they would be waterproof. And that's what Tachash means. It doesn't mean to refer to a specific animal. It means to refer to the process so that the whole thing would be watertight. The outer covering would be waterproof. The Talmud says, maybe the most logical answer, the Talmud says it was an animal that never existed before the time of the Mishkan and never existed after the time of the Mishkan. It's an animal that God created just for this purpose. So don't go looking for it, because you're not going to find it. It existed once. Its job was finished. It no longer exists. Okay. But then the Talmud says something else. All right. So you're not going to find one of these. But what did it look like? So the Talmud says something very strange. The Talmud says, shesus begavanim harbe. It was an animal that was proud that it had many colors. Now, when I learned that, I thought maybe it was a peacock, some kind of animal that is proud of all the colors it have. That's my own interpretation. I've never seen any commentary that identifies it with a peacock, but based on this line in the Talmud, that could make sense to me. But I want you to listen carefully, please, to the commentary of Rabbi Moshe Shterbach, because he explains the significance of this appearance, and especially the impact that it was supposed to have. Because keep in mind, the fact that it was visible, and the fact that it was the most visible object, if you look at the building, this is what you see, this covering, means that there is a lesson, probably many lessons, for us to learn from the appearance. What is that lesson? Rav Shterbach says something amazing. This is in his sefer called Tam Vadas. He says as follows: Shesguna sos umispar begavonim shelo. This was an animal, it was the skin of an animal, which had many colors, and the animal took pride in all of its colors. And he says, this to me is a hint to the lesson that we are supposed to learn from this visual image. Al riboy hagavonim bavodas Hashem Yisbarach. That there have always been, and there will all be, multiple approaches to coming closer to God. There is not one way. There's Ashkenazim, and there's Sephardim, and there's Hasidim, and amongst all three of those groups, there are many, many, many other subgroups. Now, maybe you hear this. I hear this a lot. Some people, it gets them very frustrated. What do you mean? Why can't you all daven in the same shul? Like at ADATH, and across the street from us is a Sephardic shul. Why do you have to have two separate shuls? Why can't you just daven together? Why do you need so many different versions of the Siddur? Have one version of the Siddur. Let everybody say the same thing. Why is it on Pesach? These people eat this and those people eat that. Why are there so many different customs? Why is it that when it comes to, God forbid, the laws of mourning, some people do it this way, some people do it that way. There's so many different opinions. It's confusing. It's bewildering. Why not just have one simple answer? What do I do? Here's the answer, instead of, well, it depends who you ask. The different opinions. It gets frustrating to people. I understand that sometimes. But when it does, they're missing a very important point. Rav Shterbach explains, Ve'ein bezeh shum stira. And there is no contradiction in all of these different colors, these different approaches to God, in serving God. Va'adraba, on the contrary, zeu tif'artam shel Yisrael. This is the beauty of Israel. Af she'ein partzufeim v'deuseim shavos. Human beings are not like each other. Different people have different inclinations, different people have different characters, just like different people have different faces, different people have different feelings, different people have different aesthetic opinions, different people are different. Umisachtim laharbos kavod shemayim. But where do they come together? They come together in order to serve God. And then, sosim usmechim lasos ritzon chonom. They have joy and gladness in being able to do the will of God. Each one in their own way. And that makes it not more frustrating, more beautiful. That all these different people from North America, people from Israel, people from every single continent in the world, people from every language, people from every culture, they're all Jews, connected by the fact that we all want to serve God in the same way, and we have different ways. I'm only talking, of course, about the details. We believe in Hashem, we observe Shabbos, we keep kosher, okay. But is this food okay, or is that food okay? Can I open this on Shabbos? Can I open that on Shabbos? Why do there have to be so many different opinions? Because they're different opinions. Because human beings have different opinions. But every one of those opinions is like a different beautiful color, all for the same purpose, all trying to arrive at the same conclusion. How do we best serve God? And far from being a distraction or a frustration, it is the beauty of the Jewish people. So many different customs, so many different cultures, so many different languages, so many different approaches, all connected with the desire to serve God in joy. This is what reflects the unity of the Mishkan, of the sanctuary, and later the Beit HaMikdash. That it was the unifying force of the entire Jewish people. It was the focal point of the entire Jewish people. And when you looked at it, you saw a multiplicity of colors. All of these different colors. Each one representing a different kind of Jew, a different community, a different set of customs. And each one beautiful, taking pride in the beauty of every single different color. And that's the secret of unity. The secret of unity is to look at the Mishkan and to understand that's what unites us. Not that we agree about everything. Not that we hold the lulav the same way. Not that we do anything this exact same way in the small details. But we're all focused on serving God. We're all focused on the Beis HaMikdash. And we all see the beauty in the multiplicity, the mosaic of different ways and avenues, more intellectual and more spiritual. And some are big into singing, and some are big into studying Torah, and some are big into overlapping of these things. Some are big into meditating, some are big into Kabbalah, some are big into practical halacha. And again, overlapping of all these things. Each one of these is a different color. And we're proud of all those colors. And so when someone says, she eats this, he doesn't eat that, she uses that symbol, he does not use that symbol, that's not something to be frustrated by. That's not something to be upset by. Why can't they just all get along? Why can't they just all follow the same opinion? That's something to be proud of. That's something to see the value in. All these different people, all these different communities, wanting to serve God, each in their own way. That's how the Mishkan was the focal point of the Jewish people and the ultimate symbol of the unity of the Jewish people, because what you would see, the covering that was visible, was multicolored from an animal that had many colors and was proud of all the colors that it had. I've shared with some of you before, there was a well-known incident that happened when the Rebbetzin of Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach passed away. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was one of the greatest authorities in Jewish law in the previous century in Israel. He lived his entire life in Jerusalem. And along with his tremendous expertise in every area of Jewish law was an incredible level of human sensitivity and kindness and concern for every person. And when his wife died, Nebuch, when his wife died, something very interesting happened. He was standing around the grave, his family, his students, people that knew her. And he said the following words. He said, some have the custom that at a funeral, the remaining spouse or the remaining relative asks mechila, asks forgiveness from the person that passed away. It's a symbolic act. But to ask forgiveness, times that we argued, times that I didn't treat you with respect, times that I didn't live up to what I should have done, and we ask forgiveness. Now, the subject of doing that at our funerals, I have a different opinion about that, but I'd like to leave that to the side for now. I don't want to discuss that, but it is a custom, and at the funeral of his wife, he made the following statement. He said to everyone who was there, he said, you know that it's the custom that at this point I should ask mechila, forgiveness from my wife for whatever I've done to irritate her, to inconvenience her, to bother her. But he said, I don't need to ask mechila. Because I know, and she knew, that in all of the years of our marriage, I never did anything to her for which I need to ask forgiveness. It was astounding. It was chilling. Number one, that he could make such a statement. Number two, that he could remember every single interaction he had with his wife over a long, long marriage. But that's what he said. Okay, that's the funeral. Sometime after that, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was speaking to a young student who had recently got married a few months before. And Rav Shlomo Zalman said to his student, he says, Nu, how's it going? How's married life? And the student says, oh, wow, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. Our marriage is beautiful. We never argue. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. Shlomo Zalman said to the student, you and your wife never argue? He said, excuse me for asking, is she sick? Is something wrong with her? The student was kind of taken aback. No, she's fine. But they're relatively recently married and they never argue. Rav Shlomo Zalman said to her, listen, I want to tell you something. It is not possible for two people to live together in the same house and never argue about anything. What do you mean you never argue? It's not possible. So the student had been at the funeral a few months earlier of Rav Shlomo Zalman's wife. And the student said, but Rebbe, Rav Shlomo Zalman, you yourself said at your wife's funeral that you had nothing you had to ask forgiveness for. So you see, you can have a house without argument. You can have a couple without arguments. So why are you complaining about me? I'm telling you that my wife and I don't have any arguments. Rav Shlomo Zalman said, no, you misunderstood. Rav Shlomo Zalman said, at the funeral of my wife, I never said we had no arguments. I never said we had no differences of opinion. I said, I have nothing for which to ask forgiveness. We had disagreements. There were issues between us. But I never had to ask for forgiveness because we always came to an understanding. We always, in the end, realized that even though we had differences of opinion, we both wanted the same thing. How do we serve God best? How do we create the family best? And we had different opinions about how to reach that. But we always came to that understanding. Shalom bayis, unity, harmony between people, does not mean that we look at things the same way and that we never have any disagreements. That's not what it means. Peace and harmony come from the ability for people to have disagreements, to have issues, to see different colors, to have different approaches, and yet still see that they all lead to one goal, one truth, to serve God. This is the Tachash. And we need to use that image as the model for creating peace. This is the way, as we say in our prayer, Oseh Shalom Bimramav, God makes peace among the angels. And this is the way that we make peace here on earth. Not by denying disagreements, but by seeing that all the different colors are connected in proud in serving God. The Tachash is the model by which the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan first, later the Beis HaMikdash, creates the greatest unity as the focal point of the Jewish people, and it's the model for us to understand how we can truly be one, though we are all different colors. My friends, I want to wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.